boys. And we live. The musics, the logos. Oh, our ugly faces hiding underneath the microphones. That's good. Whoa.
I mean,
And every time, man.
here's hoping the audio works.
Well, you know, we can't be held accountable for things we don't understand.
True.
I've been told.
So,
Hey, Tony, how are you today, man?
you know, we're living. It's a beautiful day. Morning, we got some light. Haven't had coffee yet.
What?
I know.
Is that a conscious decision?
I moved a little fast, and I told myself I'd have coffee at the office, and then I got here, and I had a podcast playing, and I was just like, you know what, let me just get set up. And, you know, one thing leads to another. No coffee yet.
I have a confession on the coffee front. I don't think I've told you. I got a Jura.
So I saw on Instagram the office, if I'm not mistaken.
The Office.
So you checked the box. People go back to the coffee episode, and Miles raved
when I
about
said
some-
when you want to be really bougie and really expensive, that's what you get.
So here is my question, and it might lead into this episode wonderfully. In some way or another, was this a strategic decision based on looking at your books through the business for the year, and you're like, all right, we have space. We could probably buy a bougie coffee maker.
Yeah. So strategic, as a former president, George W. used to say, strategery isn't really my strong point.
Okay.
Yes, we had a little extra capital in the bank.
Okay.
And then I had made promises that to the office, if we survived the pandemic, we would get one.
Well, aren't you hopeful?
I know, right?
Who's to
But
say?
I found a model that was a refurb, so I didn't pay full price, but still quite expensive and just amazing. But it's a learning curve, and we have certainly learned a lot on that curve, like tossing parts out the window that were supposed to be important.
I also saw that.
I had to climb out of them. And Lexi did it again yesterday, which was hilarious. So I had to climb back on.
And
them.
it's an espresso maker that can just also make your
So
bed?
yeah, so it is in its basic form, it is a bean to cup espresso maker.
Okay.
And so, but it can do every variation between that. So the idea is it will grind a bean, puts it in a container, can pressurize that container to can compact the beans if it needs to or not.
Like you would on a
Like
you've
either
seen
a drip
coffee shop.
or like, if you've seen in a coffee shop where they take the little thing out and they whack it and pack
Yeah.
it. And then it can either put it through hot water under pressure, or it can put it through hot water as a drip style. So it's pretty versatile. You can get an Americano, you can get cappuccinos, espressos. It has a little milk frother foamer that goes with it. Does everything automatically. Like has an LCD screen where you just hit buttons and it makes a flat white, which is apparently pretty complicated. I don't know.
It's Australian as well. I know they really brought that to the forefront.
Throw
of
another
coffee.
shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah, and flat whites.
Wait, flat whites are from
no,
Australia?
I mean, I don't think that they're necessarily from Australia. I think that
they were popularized?
they were popular. Like Australia went in on flat whites before America really was.
All I know about a flat white is the E8 can make one. And that was a selling point when you watched when I tried to figure out which model I needed.
Yeah. Well, I think we've already had a coffee episode, but my take on coffee is that, you know, everything old is new again, and there's only so many. There are three basic ingredients, and you can crank one high, one low, one high, one low, and so a flat white is just like one of the many variations of a standard three ingredient.
Yeah, latte, cappuccino.
Yeah.
Well,
but I don't know. Sarah likes them. I just, espresso is plenty for me.
Yep.
Drip coffee is plenty for me. But this is, I'd say, a segue into, okay, so you
I bought a
spent
very expensive
on a refurbished thing.
piece of equipment.
I want to talk about money.
Yeah.
I want to talk about
Dollar bills, yo.
I want to talk about money professionally and personally, and
Yep.
I want to talk about like money models, the way you think about money, the way you think about making money, the way you think about saving money,
Yep.
spending money, investing money, whatever. Because I think it's a gift if you grow up in a household that has like strong, healthy beliefs about money. And
Yeah.
I don't think I grew up in a strong, healthy beliefs about money household. And so like I'm learning a lot of my own
Okay.
and pulling in insights from books and from people. And so I think that a money conversation would be helpful.
What to get a foundation, what does money represent to you?
There
And
you
then more importantly, what does it represent to your spouse?
So
And do both of those align in your business, since you are in business with your spouse?
So I feel like this is like, I think where I'm torn is that what does money mean to me today versus like when I was growing up or even 5 years ago?
No, I would say today. Yeah.
So where I'm working on, like the things that I spend time
where are you trying to get?
living and breathing and like meditating into is like money to me is appreciation.
Okay.
If I'm doing it right. Money can't create fear because I have so much appreciation to give. And so if I'm doing it right, I can appreciate someone's effort and their work. I can be compensated, and people can show appreciation to me for things that I create that are of value to them and deliver that are of value. So money, if I'm doing it right, is a number on a computer screen that represents the appreciation I've been able to receive.
When you say appreciation, do you mean happiness?
No.
Like people are happy with you?
Not necessarily happiness. Because I think happy is like a layer away from appreciation. Like I can look at art. It doesn't make me necessarily happy, but I can appreciate that it took someone a long time to make.
Okay.
And like I can, and appreciation also is this thing that grows. Like your bank account appreciates value.
Ooh.
The home appreciates value. And so it's like a really funny word that I spent a lot of time in. And I think that if we're doing it right, money is a way to show appreciation.
Okay.
And if we didn't have money, there'd be other ways to show appreciation. It's just not as
gold bricks, Gold
bricks, like attaboys, pat on the backs are appreciation.
Okay.
But so is money, and it's just like an easier, more liquid way to share appreciation. So that's my woo-woo version of what money means.
Right.
Money means to me oxygen, options, like lower stress, because I know that if all else fails and society remains intact, we have time.
That's a big if these days, my friend.
I know, but if there's an Italian saying, if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bicycle.
Oh, the redneck saying,
she'd be my uncle.
She'd be my uncle.
If my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle. Is how I've seen it, and I think it's safer.
It's much safer, yeah.
So wheels would be a bicycle. So that's my current take on money. What I'll say is that November of last year, we had just gotten married.
Yeah.
And Sarah and I don't fight really. We like every once in a while there will be anxiety, and we discuss it, and we try and bring it. What is this thing? November last year was money.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was. Sarah was getting to a point where we were early in our personal business, a marketing business, and we had a couple clients, but we weren't sure just where things were going and how fast they were growing. I was confident. I'm glass is overflowing.
Yeah,
half full.
Yeah.
And so she was very close to getting a cafe job or looking for one, just to have guaranteed money coming in.
Yeah.
And I was like, but you can't really believe that, working for $8 an hour plus tips is the highest and best use of our time. And we do have some money in the bank. So we have oxygen, we have time. And if you believe in this process of like, have a bunch of conversations with people, be of use, like I tell them what the future could look like if we work together, and do that enough, people are going to say yes. Like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if we keep showing our work, like there's going to be someone who asks us to do something.
To do it. Yeah.
And, but that was a money conversation. And I think that we both aspire to this, like money is appreciation. The more we do, the more people can appreciate us, and money's a fair enough way to show that appreciation.
Yeah.
But that's a goal.
That's good. I mean, that's a good. And now, when I guess when you approach it from your business side, are because my quick side is money is just something I give you to get something in return. Like it's a transactional thing. Like it doesn't represent security to me. It doesn't represent safety. Now, do I fully recognize that money will buy me margin of time? It will buy me margin of stress. Yeah, sure. But it's not something that if I have a huge bank account, I'm feeling good about. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the icon, like the dragon in a lot of myth is like someone who like dragons hoard gold.
Oh yeah,
right?
hoarding
like
the gold.
They have gold in a mountain. That doesn't give me a lot of life. Like
Yeah,
right
same
now
way.
I have we don't have much. We have more money than I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want this sitting in a checking account. I want it working for me. Like go out into the world and do things, money, which is just, it's a computer screen. There's no money.
There's no it's currency versus money. Yeah.
Right. And so I have no aspirations of being a dragon that, hoards the gold currencies.
Yeah.
But I do think that I can do more good by making more money than I can by not making much money, and so part of the mission is for like what good can we do when we're creating value.
So you can't help if you own the business. You can't help but bring your personal attitude into it. And I would say my business is very much the same way. When I got married, first couple of years were very rough. We had one job, no money, and like we were living in Key West. And if I had enough money, we'd have moved home. And like rent was just super expensive. We were paying $1,400 a month rent. I was making $30,000 a year as an intern down there. That's a high percentage.
So do you have an opinion? Like, because the internet says numbers on what percent should go to rent or mortgage.
I would, in the town I'm from, you could do that very easily, but you cannot do that in any place you want to live, like Asheville. I mean, I could not imagine. It was difficult to buy and afford a home when we moved here in 2005, and I can't imagine what it's like 15 years later. I wouldn't want to.
When I look at some of these homes, so a future episode will be probably on thinking about home ownership and all the maybe numbers involved and thoughts and logic. But when I look at, the last time the homes had been sold and at what dollar value, there's a house. I'm like, oh my God, Sarah, look how cute this house is. And then I scrolled it past purchases. Like 2007, it was like $85,000, $400,000 house.
My boss, when we were in the Keys, he moved to the Keys in the late 60s. And he bought the office. He bought the house he lived in for $45,000. And when I left there in 2003, the house appraised for $1.7 million.
What?
Yeah, it's just stupid stuff like that. That's a whole separate topic. Baby boomers and real estate and the cost of real estate and how sustainable that is. But it factors into like financing and money and how much like real estate is hugely expensive. And right now, whether you're going to buy or rent or business wise lease, it's a very expensive in large part of your annual budget for personal or business. And I don't have a really fancy office. I don't really, and I've never wanted it.
Which I honestly I'm surprised by, because you're an architect.
Yeah. Like, there are plenty of architects in town who have some really nice expensive offices.
And I just kind of I loved it. I love your office. Exposed.
It's got a good, it's got a great feel. It's very warm and homey.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, because it's not like a model home that you would like, hey, I'm a home builder. Let's meet in this home that you're gonna eventually buy a home that looks like this home. This is a avatar for what I do.
Yes.
Not that in your office.
No, and that's a very, I won't say it's a conscious decision, but that's again talking about how your personal finances and perspective inform some of your business decisions. And I mean, I do the same thing in my life. Like, I would rather have low overhead. Like
Yeah.
my rent is cheap. It's a great spot. It's by far not the cheapest rent I've ever had, but the rent is rather inexpensive.
Yeah.
It's in a great location and it gives me everything I need, and it has low monthly overhead. And so by doing that, I've allowed myself more margin.
Yeah.
And really, that's what I chase when we talk about finances. My wife and I, or anyone in my business that I talk to about it, really I chase margin. Like really, how much free time can I get? How much free space can I have between what I make and what I have to pay?
Yeah.
And how much? And honestly, we talked about this in the relationships podcast. Like I like to have margin in relationships. So like I like to have things going well enough or systems set up well enough where I'm not just barely getting by.
Yeah.
And that honestly is very, very hard in the beginning. I mean, I say this as a 41-year-old who, looking back when I was 20, was like, man, I can't wait till I'm 40. I don't have to stress about money or whatever. I'm like, now that I'm 40, I'm looking around like, shit, should I have this figured out by now? Because I don't. And then I go another 20 years. Am I going to be 60 and still? And like, sure, like if you're doing it right, you should be at least questioning your decisions along the way.
Yeah.
Have I gotten better in the last 20 years? Yes, I'm much better at managing savings and spending money than I was in my 20s, but I have more options right now. And so I'm happy to get money to my wife means security, and it's a little bit of a thing. And as bad as this is going to sound, like there has been a very conscious decision for her not to be involved on some of the higher level decisions or higher level planning and system setup, because she couldn't live with the stresses in the beginning of barely getting by. You know, when I started my firm in 2010, it didn't matter if my mortgage was $5 or $5,000. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
And so that stressed her out.
I mean, I interviewed you on Making It in Nashville, if you're watching, and I remember those moments, and I was like, Sarah and I went home, and I was like, Sarah, what if? What if?
Yeah.
But what I had calculated, or what I was rationalizing, is like, we didn't have much in the bank, but we also, our biggest expense is rent.
Yeah.
Behind that are my student loans. It's almost even. We bought a car, add car to student loans, it's now more than rent. So that all in is $24,000 a year, a little over, without like paying above and beyond.
Yeah.
Right. So like
groceries.
that is our nut.
Yeah.
Like do not pass go. But also we could not pay it in full. Like there are penalties, but like we could not pay it in full.
Yeah.
It's way hard to kick someone out of an apartment. But so like I knew that those things were spoken for like a year. Like we had about $25,000 in the bank, and I was like, this gives me so much freedom. And like, we could choose to eat ramen noodles. We could like just scheme in the apartment and like what's gonna be the $1 million idea if we wanted to, and have, to me, what feels like a lifetime. 6 months ago, think about how different the world was.
6 months ago. Yeah.
Think about how different the world was a year ago.
Yeah.
So like, you give me a whole year. I have no idea what's going to happen a year from now. All I know is that
I like what I like. I hear in that, and what's great, and I think it's something that I do, is your financial decisions and financial positions. You look at that as something that allows you to make decisions, versus some people say their decision is to save and as much money as possible.
Right.
And that is the goal, versus, and it's just kind of an attitude. You know, their attitude is, I've got to get as much saved as I can. And that decision forces them into a position where they have to make lots of other decisions based upon that. Whereas you look at it from really, it's not an opposite, but a different perspective of that. These finances allow me, you've decided to allow the finances to give you more options to make decisions.
Absolutely.
And I think that might be the little kind of entrepreneur, business owner
And I've had years where I ran so lean or so negative that I'm like, I feel I'm sitting like high. What's it? Eating high on the hog.
Yeah.
I am so
and tall cotton.
I'm tall cotton. I don't know that one, but that sounds right.
You're not from South Carolina.
Life is so good. I'm like, this is this stressful moment is the best financial position of like almost ever I think I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
And so I think, well, you're 20, you're in your early 20s, you're married.
Yeah.
What had informed your relationship with money and finances to date? You mentioned like a grandmother who put you into some cool rooms in your past. Like, who were the people that you were thinking that maybe you would model your finances after? What was your relationship with money, and how has it changed?
Oh, I was supposed to be a millionaire by like 30. Yeah.
Same.
I came from a pretty good upbringing in that regard. Like my family, my stepfather and mom didn't carry a lot of debt. They were very open and honest about that. They didn't drive new cars. We lived in a pretty okay house. I do remember there was one time where my parents ended up moving. We moved to a house on the outside of town where I went to high school. And it was a big house with a big piece of property. And I remember my mom, when they sold that house and moved back to the house we used to live in, we still owned it. It was just a lake house. I remember them talking about how they almost got caught up in that rat race of having to, because you got a bigger house, you got to get more furniture, they got a bigger yard, you got to get a tractor, you got and there's all these kind of decisions that put them in, and then they started. But yeah, I mean, I most of my upbringing was cash related, like very little credit card usage. At least openly, I'm sure if you're smart, you can leverage debt properly, depending on how your personal feelings toward debt. And so that really is kind of just the upbringing I got. So I grew up in we're from upstate South Carolina. From my dad's side of the family is from old textile family, like mill workers. So they weren't like the bosses. They didn't make a ton of money. On my mom's side, that was the farming side. So it's not like we had old family money trust funds sitting around. And my parents did all right. My stepfather retired at the age of, he had to wait to 62 until he was old enough to do it, but he had worked for the same company for 18 years, or since he was 18. So,
oh my goodness,
yeah,
it was math. That's a while.
Yeah, it was a long time. And he applied for one job in his whole life. But they kept the overhead low. They kept their margins high. They made some what turned out to be pretty wise decisions and stuff, and worked out great for them. And so that's my hope, is to do the same. I'm not to talk about what my background is, to talk about what my goals are. My goal isn't to like do something and win $100 million lottery.
Right.
Like my goal, and what I've always been doing, is to just create monthly income through businesses that will sustain me for the rest of my life. Like I have no goal of retiring. I have no goal of building a business, selling it off, and then go doing something else.
Yeah.
Like I'm an architect. I like to build stuff. So I will very likely always be doing that in some capacity. So
do you have any, okay. Cool. I grew up, I love my parents. I think that I grew up in a unbelievable community, like New Jersey, suburban New York City. In some magazine or another, when I was a kid, we were like one of the top towns. And it's all community, tiny cul-de-sac homes and beautiful millions of dollars.
It's not inner city with
not at all
people getting shot all the time.
Green grass and beautiful. Garden State is called the Garden State because of like this area of New Jersey. And
no other area, though.
More or less. I mean, New Jersey is beautiful. Doesn't get a good rap, but it's a beautiful
state. Don't believe it.
So I lived on like a county road. We didn't have neighbors, and everyone else had like, I would get dropped off on the bus after going by all these other kids as like beautiful communities that get picked up by my grandmother, and played sports a lot. And it took until I was like, I don't know, 4th grade, 5th grade, when I realized like, oh my God, everyone's houses are so big. They have so much stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And both my parents worked all my childhood. We, like, credit cards were readily used. I went to a high school that depleted whatever savings or finances my parents had. I went to a private high school, to the point where my college loans are all in my name. I had to get co-signed by an aunt. who one of my prouder moments was refinancing and being in a position where I can get her off of those old loans. But it was, I don't think I learned much about money other than don't let the money be the reason you make a certain choice. If you want to do the thing, you can do the thing. If you don't want to do the thing, you don't have to do the thing. But like, don't run the numbers. Just do the thing that you want. And I don't know if that's a great strategy, but it's informed a lot of how I see the world still today. And partly I'd say that upbringing made my 20s very different than most people. So I have lived in Italy and tried to start a travel business in Italy. I worked as a consultant, a business coach, a life coach. I've worked in fitness as a CrossFit coach. I've sold clothes. I've sold enterprise software. I've done like very, very different things, which is all just my pursuit.
But not chasing the money.
Not necessarily. It was curiosity and like, what is the thing that I think could be the most valuable right now, either for me or that is my gift to give. I think that all of those jobs and all of those roles and hats are things that inform how I've shown up in Making It Creative and in this podcast and
for
in
sure.
Making It in Nashville. And it's very interesting. Now what I'm thinking just slightly more, what I'll say is like methodically, to say I've paid in credit card debt, in student loans, an unfathomable amount in just interest. Just interest.
Yeah.
We bought a car last year. We just paid it off.
Nice.
With a big lump sum.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I finally, like, I opened the statement. I put stuff on auto pay. We, know, making more than the minimum. But I opened the statement. We bought it in, I don't know, May of last year, June of last year at the latest. And we've already paid like $1,600 in interest. And I was like, fuck, like, why? Like, we have the money in an account.
Yeah. What was your interest rate?
5.6%.
Okay, yeah. No, that's fine. It's this is going to be a generational thing, and I don't mean that like you're in a different. So when I bought my first house, the interest rate was 4.75. My parents bought their first house, and the interest rate was 16%. And so some people have, that was their baseline. 16% was, they refinanced to 11 and thought they had won the lottery.
Yeah.
But at the time, houses only cost $35,000. So $33,000 loan at 11% is a very different thing of a $250,000 house at 4.75%.
Right.
So, so interest can bury you very quickly.
It's
just debt service is awful when it's, and I think that's an important part of the conversation when you talk about your philosophy of money is what is your philosophy of debt?
Yeah.
Because I know some very rich people who are just cash flowing tons of debt service. And the only reason they are wealthy is because they can cash flow more than their debt service. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I just say that's their mechanism for generating wealth. And it works until something happens because that debt service is still there. And
the thing that kills me is that our debt right now, we don't own a home. We no longer owe anyone money for a car.
Yeah.
Our debt is not is bankruptcy irrelevant. Like I can't offload my student loans.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, so this is fixed. There's no way to get rid of it. I have $60,000 left. Yeah. I started with 115.
Man, that blows. Like, and I'm fortunate. Like when I went to Clemson University, it was $2,500 a semester. It might even been $2,500 a year, for in-state tuition.
Yeah.
And I worked through undergrad, and my parents paid some, and that worked out great. I had no undergrad debt. When I was going back to graduate school, I applied it. I got into a bunch of schools, but Clemson was like, "Hey, we have this teaching position that you can do, and we will your tuition goes to $750 a semester, but we'll pay you $1,250 a semester.
Quick
So I went
math.
back to Clemson. Yeah. So I was fortunate, graduated with no student debt. My wife, not so much. I think when she graduated, we had 15 or 20. And again, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago. I can't imagine right now. Like my kids, when they talk about wanting to go to college, I'm just like, why? My number one question is why?
So that's how I'm wired. Sarah, like we will have these hypothetical conversations where it's like, what's going to, I'm like, first of all, I don't think like if left to rear a child on my own,
Yeah.
this kid's not going to college. It's because he's going to be.
Well, you get saddled to bring it just to the financial side. We don't need to talk about anything else from the career, earnings, future. Just looking at it from the financial side.
Yeah.
Like, I had professors that had, when they were teaching me, they probably had, I know for a fact, over $150,000 in student debt.
Yeah, and it's Looney Tunes. And so the debt, or I say, if you want to go to college, first, you need to tell me which college specifically.
Yeah.
Why?
Why that college? Yeah.
Who are the teachers that you want to learn from? And then I would only theoretically only allow state schools as a concept.
Yeah.
And then you move to that state, create a primary residence after 6
live
to
there
8
for
months, and then you're a 20-year-old freshman.
Yeah.
And more power to you because you're going to be even smarter and better.
Yeah.
And you're going to understand what it's like to live in a place, and like the dorms aren't going to be as exciting because you've already done. So I have all these crazy thoughts on what college means, and I think that when you look at a lot of tech founders and people who are creating value, it rarely are the things that you learn that create the most value directly, except when you're an architect, except when you're a lawyer,
no. You don't learn anything
dentist.
in school that it's a prerequisite to licensure, and that's it.
Sure. But I mean,
it checks a box.
So if that's the route, if you want to end up with next to your name, architect, whatever those letters might be, I don't know. Are there letters?
You can be RA. If you join the professional association, you can be AIA.
Ooh.
You can be NCARB.
Yeah. So if you want a PhD or a DR or whatever, then you need to go to school. Heard, get it.
But you have to understand that decision, like puts you in a financial position later.
Heard. And you cannot offload student loans with the way that the world is currently set up right now, and it transfers to my wife if I die.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Right.
Nuts.
Even the interest rates are so low, it doesn't matter. The principal is so high.
Right.
The cost of insurance. The cost of tuition has gone through the roof with like all these lottery programs. Because what ended up happening is, the lottery is going to pay for college. Well, the college just started spending more money, so the tuition went up, and then it became this self-feeding monster.
It is, and I've listened to some like Malcolm Gladwell episodes on the problem with higher education, and it's Looney Tunes. Like presidents of universities 40 years ago used to make $35,000, and now they're like $500,000 salaries. Mm-hmm. Some of the endowments on some of these giant schools are the size of like countries have less money than Princeton endowment. And it's some of it is just so it doesn't make sense. The only other note that I have on college and what makes it crazy to me is that I once interned in a financial advisor's office.
Ooh.
One partner had focus on equities, the other had a focus on bonds, and we were talking about college. And the one partner was older, the other one is he seemed old to me. I was 20, so he's probably 30 years old.
Yeah, I think 35.
You know what I mean? Like
rude.
And so, exactly. And he's like, "Here's what you need to know." It's like my wife today, however old he was, has $140,000 in student loans, and we will never pay them off. And I go, "Oh man, like it's that hard?" And he goes, "No. I'll never pay them off because the interest rates are 4%, and I can make more in the market." And I was like, I think I understand what you're saying, and now I'm in a place where I'm like, what is the best place?
You can play a debt service game for sure. Yep.
Where's the best place to route money to?
Yep.
And I'm suspicious of the stock market today because I think with my limited understanding of the stock market, it is not correlated to reality. Like things are going up, things are going down. I think that the stock market in the abstract and in a very wide lens over time will go up. It's self-cleansing. The worst a business can do is go to zero.
Yep.
The biggest it can go is unbelievably large.
Sky's
We don't
the limit.
know.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So it is built.
It can go
to
from
grow.
Blockbuster to Amazon.
Exactly. Right. So it's built to grow. So I think that over time, stock market will go up. I think individual stocks are Looney Tunes, and I'd rather, if I'm going to bet on a number in roulette, it's going to be my number.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
if I'm gonna bet on gambling, I want to bet on the casino.
Yeah. No.
Cool metaphor.
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about it.
I want to bet
like
on
that.
the casino.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to bet on a player. I don't want to bet on a number. I want to bet on the casino.
Yep.
And so I think the casino is.
Thinking of a current casino owner that
Oh God.
runs our country right now.
He just put his name on the
Yeah.
building.
Lost $1 billion.
Yeah. At
bet
any
on the
rate,
casino.
and my grandmother paid his salary for a little while
Out there with
in
the
New
corners,
Jersey too.
with the quarter slots.
Oh
Yes.
Flaming Sevens. Were
Yes.
her,
That's her jam.
Were drug of choice. Yeah.
Oh man.
So that's my take. Like I now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I understand you after all these years, sage Yoda-like intern mentor, and we have a little bit of money. And what I decided, because we were positioning to buy a home in the next year or so in a crazy market in Asheville, so maybe I don't know, outside of Asheville is probably more realistic, but we're positioning to buy a home. And one of the things I'm thinking about is what does our balance sheet need to look like?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get my credit score as high as possible? Right now it's good. And how do we make everything look as good as possible so that if we had to pounce, we could, and we could move fast and be able to do it. And one of those things was, all right, I'm going to pay off our smallest debt, which is this car that has our, tied for highest interest rate. That is also the newest
debt.
form of debt.
Yeah.
So it's off. And now our, age of the average debt pushes back, which is a net good. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, those, yeah. So you have to understand. I think you have to understand what your foundation is as a person. You have to dealing with finances is almost it's a exercise in psychology. You have to understand who you are. You have to understand where you want to go, and understand all the different paths you can get there. Because there are lots of ways to manage money. There's lots of ways to accrue money. There's lots of ways to save it, and lots of ways to spend it.
Yeah.
And all those are impacted by really understanding who you are and what your goals are. I'm pretty fortunate to know enough financial advisors that I've bounced a lot of ideas off of them. But yeah, if your goal is to buy a house to get to that first step, then that, we've talked about this. If you can find a local mortgage broker, they can help guide you through that. And then as part of that, they will look at your credit report, look at your credit score, and look at your debts and say, okay, well, they'll start asking questions about this and about that. But again, that person's only goal is to get you into a house.
Yeah.
And when you talk to a financial advisor, they will very likely do the same thing. You have to explain to them what your goal is. Their goal is not to get you in the house. Their goal is to really get you where you want to go. And if that is where you want to go is buy a house, great. If where you want to go is to retire at the age of 35, great. If where you want to go is to work your entire life and have higher monthly, margin, that's great too. Those are all different paths forward that are all informed by who you are.
One of the things I'm stuck with is I am what I've recognized is I'm very suspicious of financial advisors who trade your money and buy stocks for you. Yeah. But I see the value and appreciate what I will call, and I don't know if it's an actual thing, like a financial strategist. I will pay for a strategy.
Yeah.
But I'm very, I'll question, if you're going to charge me a margin for the amount of money you have that you manage that is mine, or if you charge me a transactional fee every time you buy or sell something, that's, I don't know if our incentives are necessarily aligned.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
What is the goal here? If the goal is, have you heard of the term FIRE? It's like
you're coming at me straight fire kind of thing.
So there's this whole there's this whole internet community focused on this term that they call FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early.
Okay.
So there's this whole world of FIRE enthusiasts and there's lean fire enthusiast, which is like, so the idea is that if you have 25 times your annual cost of living in assets,
Okay.
so call it the stock market, checking accounts, if you have it in liquid assets, you can live forever.
Yeah.
And if you stay at that same cost of living.
Yes. Yeah. Assuming.
And so it's a 4% annual cost. They say that if you're invested properly, over time, like no 10-year run in any stock market has ever done enough damage that
to impact
enough that you couldn't still continue to live at that thing if you get to the point where you have 25 times. So then there's, well, if I can live on $4,000 a year in Bali, I only need $100,000 in the bank.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
And again, that's you have to understand
You know
who you are. Where you want to go, and then all the different paths to get there, for sure.
And so there's
I could be kicking it in Cuba right now. I just don't want to live in Cuba. And so what my goal, but I only ask that because you're like, it depends on what your goals are. My goal is to enjoy my work. Yes.
Make more money than I spend, limit the amount of money that goes to places that don't create value. I'll call that debt.
Okay.
And just like random expenses that are from financial laziness versus strategy. Like late payments or overdrafts or whatever those things are. Those are just costs. And then one of my biggest things is like the cost of making money. So like if it's the stock market, I once looked, I was like paying, I don't know, I had some app. And I won't name the app because I don't know what specific money app it was. It cost like $1 a month. And I was like, this makes sense. But I had like $100 in. And I was like, oh my God, this is a absolutely gargantuan percent
1%
of like my money. It's 12% a year to just the and I was like, what am I doing? I'm like pretending that I have stock. And like,
but again, that's about knowing yourself. That's about having the ability to ask yourself, is this really what I want to be doing? And that's great because yes. So I'm not a fan of the stock market. It has been described, and I have parroted this many times. It is a moody teenage girl that is unhappy with anything that is ever said about it, to it, and anything that's ever given.
Yeah.
Certainly it will have very happy high days, but it will certainly have some very low days.
Yeah.
And there's no really knowing when they're coming. And so
anyone who tells you otherwise is a liar.
Really and truly, my financial advisor friends, they will tell you the quickest way to get wealthy in the stock market is either look at it for 40 years or already have a ton of money.
Yeah.
And they just say, listen, you give me a bunch of money, I can make you a bunch of money in the stock market. You give me $100 a month, come and talk to me in 60 years. And you might have enough money to retire.
Yeah.
And so it's not something I understand, so it's not something I invest in.
Yeah.
I decided to take whatever money I have and I put it in things I understand. Those are businesses that I can control. Those are businesses that I can touch or can be related to or understand. I can put it in real estate because those are things that I look forward to. Now, that being said, there are a couple of mechanisms, we've talked about it, like that are when you're starting out. All right, this if you're looking for the practical standpoint, and this was given to be my more than one financial advisor. When you get started, you get married, you start in your family, you're looking for your future, you're single, whatever. You want to start out, get a will. Have a will drawn up, whether it's through a lawyer, online, have a will somewhere, just a record document that says all this stuff I've amassed in my life, this is how I want it handled. Get a durable power of attorney, I believe is what it is, a medical will, basically. So if you're married, for you or for your spouse, so that you know how end-of-life care should be handled, you know how the other person should, DNR, those kind of things. And then you get into the life insurance kind of thing. And so this is where it can get a little tricky. There's two types of insurance. There's whole life insurance and then there's term life insurance. And so whole life insurance is more expensive, has less coverage, but you can use it throughout the entirety of your life. Term life insurance is something that's only good for a certain term. You can say 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's much cheaper, but a much higher payout. That's your catastrophic insurance. That's the I die and my family's taken care of for the rest of their lives. The whole life insurance is a little bit different. I can just tell you, for me, we got both of those at the age of 25, I think, and they were very cheap because I was 25. And so if you're listening to this, get it while you can when you're young. It'll be much cheaper. I think I got for me, because I was single income family at the time, I think I have $2 million of term life insurance for like $65 a month. And so I think I have it until I'm 65, which is good. But it goes away. So I pay $60 a month for 40 years, and that value goes away when I turn 65.
Don't use it, you lose.
Yep, exactly. The whole life policy is like $120 a month, but the way it was explained to me and the way I believe it and the way I will utilize it is that it is a savings account that has a death benefit. So basically, I'm paying $120 a month into an insurance policy that accrues a cash value that after enough years, I can take loans against. You can treat it like an asset. So I believe my payout's like $750,000, might be $650,000 for the death benefit, but that starts immediately. But every year after that, or every month, I put in $124, and they give me what the running value is versus how much I've paid. And so I'm at the point now, 15 years later, where it is worth more in money than I've put into it, which is great. Again, it's not. It's just a long-term saving mechanism that has a death benefit. Yeah. So those are the 3 to 4 things, just depending if you're looking for just. And every financial advisor told me that. Like everyone that I trusted, it didn't feel like a used car salesman. And that's been a number of them. So if you can get those things squared away, that is your foundation. That is, if you can take care of these things, this will help you, your family, your dependents, whatever. Worst case scenario, that when you die.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you've talked through is like the ultimate hedge against.
That's all it is. Yeah, you're just creating a foundation for a hedge against death.
Yeah, against death. And I think that most people are probably don't think to that far of an extreme. The one thing that I'll say is that I don't know enough about insurance plans, but I know that there's a couple resources that I've read recently where flags are thrown out about types of insurance policies. Yeah. And I don't know enough to talk about them. But the one thing that I do hear everyone talk about is that you want to pay as little as possible into services that promise to make you money, or pay for that service with the lowest amount of cost to the service provider.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not overpaying that account to save money.
Yeah. And so it's, when you think about like asset growth, Vanguard for me is like this crazy business. I went to school in Southeastern Pennsylvania. Vanguard is in Southeastern Pennsylvania. I thought that all my friends who went to work for Vanguard were like joining some sort of cult. I didn't understand what it was. I still, until like months ago, didn't really get it. And now I'm like, oh my God, what a gift. I wish that one of them had like grabbed my face
and brought you into the cult.
You know what I mean? Had grabbed my face and just said, like, listen, it's by investing in the mutual funds, you own the business. There's like no cost. It's crazy. It's like the only way you should invest in the stock market.
It really is. You're betting on the casino.
You're betting on the casino if you bet on. So we just got we use Betterment.
Okay.
From when I worked in a tech startup, Betterment was this thing, and I had my 401k started through Betterment through my company. It was a gift. Betterment uses, they do tax sheltering programmatically through this software. So the idea is if you have capital gains here and something else goes down, they're trying to wash it off, offset each other before it shows up in your account. A little above my pay grade, but I trust it. You look at the assets that are owned by my account, it's almost entirely Vanguard funds.
Yeah.
And so I'm paying this service to have access to Vanguard. And it's still objectively, the world loves it. Most people absolutely love it. I love it. I just now dollar for dollar, I'm going to just put it directly into Vanguard.
Yeah.
And I don't need, the way that I think about it is I have the total U.S. stock market and I don't think that I need international account like portions of my investments to be international, because the biggest U.S. businesses are global.
It's true.
I have access to the global markets, and
we are as bad as it sounds. The U.S. is the global market,
right? So, so the way that I'm thinking about things, it's going to be like one or two. Money's going to flow in a number of ways. Into our business, and then into us specifically. It's going to then route itself towards our cost of living, capture our cost of living times itself to be a required savings amount.
Yeah.
That'll go into finance or investments, or right now, honestly, having cash is not a bad place for us, because
I'm stockpiling a little bit.
We're positioning for a down payment and just to have cash. Mm-hmm. We have more cash than we need, but we don't have enough cash for a very seamless home down payment.
Yeah. I think what's important though in that is in your position and in the situation you've put yourself in is you understand it.
Yeah.
And you're okay with it a lot, and morally okay with it, or mentally okay with it. Some people just don't like. I got to put money in my 401k. They don't know what happens to it after it goes away.
Oh my goodness.
They just don't. And so that's a level of accountability that if you're okay with that. Okay,
so I'm very intently and very hard at trying to figure out how this stuff all works. And I have from two books specifically, but like the waterfall of how money should move above and beyond the cost of living. So it's like your first money should go, if you have 401k matching from your employer, it should go there because
that's a dollar for dollar return.
Theoretically, that's free money.
Yep.
Then, and this is my best memory of the flow. It's like dollar for dollar free money, and then it goes into traditional IRAs because that's pre-tax money. So $5,000 is $5,000 into that account. Then it goes back into 401k to take as much as you're legally allowed to invest into a 401k, which is something like $19,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's so much money into a 401k. But then if you can go past that, then you go into Roth IRA, because that's to put $5,000 into Roth. You need to have earned additional $6,000 because it's taxed, and then you put it in. So it's like this whole waterfall of where you're like marginally the dollar does the most work for you, and then investing all of those in ways where you're not losing money by way of management of the funds. I had a HSA from my old company that I had in an account, and once I left the company, it cost me $30 a month that I didn't know. Oh, wow. $30 a month just to have $2,500 in this account. I noticed like 6 months later that I was out $180 just into the air. And I'm like, how that's robbery.
Yeah.
Management fees? So I put it in Fidelity. It costs $0 forever. Yeah. My money just grows.
But again, that's because you have the recognition and you have the desire to know what's going on. And that really, like, a lot of people really don't want to know what's in the cheeseburger they're eating. A lot of people won't really want to know what's in the sausage, but you need to know.
But I wasn't. What I'll say is I wasn't always wired this way.
Okay.
I was betting on a lotto ticket.
Okay.
When in my early 20s.
Was that lotto ticket in the form of like a startup or like just lotto landing that job?
Well, I think it was just like one day something's going to hit and I'm going to pay someone to figure this out. Like this will be someone else's problem. Like I believe in business. Revenue solves most problems.
There is a lot of problems that can't be solved with, or not a lot of problems that can't be solved
with revenue.
Yeah, with
I was like, that was my assumption. I was like, I'll just start making more money. Like, yes, I know that I'm going into credit card debt. Yes, I know that like I'm spending more on whatever than I should. But I was like, but revenue is going to solve this problem. And what it turns out, what I've learned is like things that you pay attention to, you typically get better at.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And rarely the monster under the bed is as scary as it seems when you just look.
Yeah. You just ask it some questions like, "Hey, monster, how are you today? What you got planned?"
Yeah. And so that
if
monster,
I give you $1, what are you going to do with it?
That monster was $116,000 of student loans. That just seemed to be like I think there were months where the number just got bigger
because of interest.
And I was
hard.
like, I paid, right? Like we paid.
checking back through. I'm on auto draft.
I don't know why.
That's an
bigger.
oppressive thing, and to get that at such a young age,
Nonsense.
It's awful, and it puts you in you're so far behind where you could be, or where at least you could end up, because you're starting 50 yards back from the goal line.
I've always, since college, I've been paying for a pretty good apartment in any city in the country. And
that's okay.
Just student loans. A pretty good apartment in any city in the country, and just student loans. And that's not like,
I didn't realize you meant that in the student loan payment. I thought you meant that in like you just stayed in nice apartments. You meant you have been.
That's it. I've been paying someone else's rent. We talked about like, how could someone just pay for an extra apartment somewhere? I've been doing it since I was 21.
Oh man, that hurts.
Yeah.
But you know, and one of the other things too is the financial, for me, is the financial positions that I put myself in are really made me who I am and forced me to change some things about myself. So it is unfortunately like relationships or like anything else. You really do have to. You got to talk to that monster underneath the bed. Yeah. And then at that point you realize, oh, this isn't really that big of, it was a lot scarier in my mind than what he is in reality. And working through those situations has been great, because I've grown as a person, and I now understand financial things much better than when I was 20. And so I can what my ultimate goal is, I have a clearer path for how to get there. That's what I should say.
Two-part question. Can you articulate your path? Second question, which is different. Start with that. What is your goal? At this point?
I don't have a goal of retiring. Okay. I plan on working. Architects have a long, illustrious history of being found dead Monday morning in the office by the first person in. So no one ever wants to be the first person in on a Monday morning. But yeah, architects don't retire. They just never do.
Yeah.
So I do plan on working for the rest of my life in some capacity, whether my end goal is to be able to take off months at a time whenever I want and travel and do what I want.
And so functionally, does that look like the business has managers in it and operators?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So the businesses get grown to a point where I have really worked myself out of a job.
Yeah. And how as a I don't want to get too specific, but like, how do you pull money out of the business? Is it by salary or distribution?
So there's a lot. One company, I am a salaried employee, form and function. I get a W-2 for Vignette Architecture. I'm a K1. We do K1 distributions through that as owners.
Do you do it annually, quarterly, monthly?
It really depends, honestly.
Year.
Yeah,
what's happening?
Just really, if we have a spike and we know we've got a little extra capital, we might take a draw at that point. But it all gets reconciled at the end of the year. But that for me has been the goal, is to so architects either have to sell their business to someone that works there or get bought out by a bigger company. I'm really, again, I've got no ego in it. It's not named after me anymore. It was, and that was a strategic rebrand, was to get to a point where the business was the thing, not Miles. And so, the idea is if I could just keep a salary going for the rest of my life, and maybe that salary, while I'm working 60 hours a week now, when I'm, 55 or 60, maybe I'm working 10 hours a week and making that same salary.
Yeah.
And that frees me up to sling barbecue down by the river when I want to, and just, just do fun stuff.
Got it. I think that makes sense. Question that's hopped in before the second question I want to ask.
Yeah.
Is with partners, how do you end up making decisions on like, how much should we buy another heavy duty equipment thing? Like, how does that work its way out? Because right now I just took a full-time job. And so we had been positioning to make as much net income as humanly possible with making creative. Now we don't have to to get to the place where we wanted to be, which was in a position to buy any home that was interesting to us.
Yep.
Now we don't have to. So I have one partner, it's my wife, relatively not complex on working that out. I'm wondering what it looks like on making decisions that eat into net operating margin or profit. would eat
mostly
into
for
Caitlin.
us, at least in my realm, it's labor force. So do we hire someone new? Getting a new computer, getting a fancy coffee.
The margin.
It's really, when you look at it as our annual gross revenue, I mean, it's a 0.1% or something like that. It's just it's so small that buying a computer, that's really our. Now, moving offices, buying equipment, or buying a whole new furniture, like those kind of things, certainly. But those are pretty limited. Those are like, we do that one every 5 years. But my partner Justin likes to move offices a lot, so we just opened a new one in Rock Hill. But so those discussions come into, and this will get back to understanding who you are. Like I'm very much I don't want to say I'm a risk taker, but I'm not risk averse.
Yeah.
And so when I look at, okay, what does our business need? Do we need another employee? Do we need a bigger office? Do we need?
Do you make any decisions where, like, we interviewed Lisa and Dean from Atlas, and one of the things they said is, like, we like to have the money in a checking account or a savings account for a full year of an employee.
So that's the rich dad, poor dad kind of discussion. And so, and I don't know if
I'm familiar.
Yeah. And so, like, it really comes down, are you the type of person that saves the money before you do the thing, or are you the type of person that makes a decision to do the thing and then figures out how to pay for it?
Right.
And so they are the people who save the money before they do the thing. And I'm the type of person to do the thing and then figure out how to pay for it.
That extra head pays for itself in a month once I get the job.
Once I get it up and running. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so then my second. Oh, do I remember it? My second question is, if in the other room was $25,000 that you couldn't keep in your pocket, put it in a checking account, what would you do with a marginal $25,000 right now?
Assuming my bank account had zero in it, I would sit on that money.
Okay.
Because I think it is important to have some money there as a nest egg. Now, business or personal?
I'm gonna say. So I want to say you as a person, but with the intention of doing more than just hedging against a downturn. So I want that.
Let's just say I had $25,000 in my account already, and you handed me another 25.
And you got to put this money to work in some way.
To do something, yeah.
What work would you do?
Honestly, my first would be see which one of my friends is doing a startup. See which one of my friends has got a business going, got something that. How can I be a partner? How can I help them? How can that would be?
Have you done that before?
I mean, all my businesses, honestly, outside of Form and Function. So Mac Constructors and Vignette have always been. At a certain point, this sounds selfish, but I don't do the business for me to generate money. I do the business to help friends do things they couldn't do before, or at least help get them across the line.
Doesn't sound selfish. It sounds opposite.
Well, it just makes me seem more important than I really am, because like with Vignette Architecture, Justin wasn't licensed, and so he couldn't do commercial stuff, but we needed to get to the Charleston market, and you have to be a licensed firm. And so I just was helping him. I partnered up to help him with a couple of houses that turned into a couple more houses that turned into a couple more houses. And, 10 years later, we've got 3 offices and 9 employees. Wow. And Mac Constructors is the same way. It was a construction company that my partner Chris him and I were just having coffee talking about it. And he's like, I really want to do it. It scares me to death. I've never started a business. I've never done it. Would you help me? And I was like, I would love to be involved, because that's part of my goal. The two things came together. So that's how I would start. But again, I'm the type of person I need to see and touch and understand.
Would you get into like manufacturing a doll, or would it be adjacent to architecture?
I mean, honestly, it would be nice to diversify into something not construction related. Okay. And I'm not, I would love to sell a product and not a service, just because of
I know you've mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm. A few times. But I would start there. And then if there was no avenues for me to look at, because really and truly, I give a friend $25,000, or at least as a business, there's a very real possibility that goes away.
Yeah. You have to assume that it will.
Goes to zero. Yes. And so, but that is predicated on the fact that I've got $25,000 already in my account, and I've got businesses and cash flow set up that losing that $25,000 won't cause me to then go through the 25 in my bank account.
Yeah.
But the upside is it could be whatever.
Yeah.
If you're not wired that way, if you really this is where you call your financial advisor, and it's important that like Wu-Tang Financial, you got to protect your neck. Call your financial advisor, and at that point, it's important to understand what your goal is. Like, is your goal to, hit it big, throw $25,000 in the market, and pull 250 out in a year because you've been in some super high risk, crazy stuff?
Luckissimo is what that is.
If you're okay with it, you're okay with it. But
I love that. I think I completely concur.
So what's and that same question to you then?
With 25K?
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by it because I this is literally what I think about all the time. I'm like, we have a little bit of money in the bank. We have a service business. Scaling, making it creative, our marketing agency is not necessarily exciting to me as a concept. Mm-hmm. Growing, making it in Asheville, and like, could we do something where like all of a sudden with double down on media, and all of a sudden there's this making it in community thing, and then we're licensing it, and we have a team that's running in different cities, like that. All of a sudden, we've kind of half-assed it because it wasn't paying us, but was it not paying us because
you were half-assed it?
Yeah. Like once we got clients, we focused on our marketing business. Mm-hmm. It is Western North Carolina's #1 local podcast.
Yes,
hot dogs. But like, what is that?
Gonna be. But
there's a marketing angle that you could say like, hey, we landed in the city, had no job, all of a sudden, we grew a 6-figure business overnight.
Yeah,
like because we just started a podcast,
sat in front of people with microphones. Yeah.
Like I could see the e-course, right? I could see the community. I could see the Facebook messages of like other people trying to license it and do it in their own little towns.
Okay.
So there's that, and then I'm like, oh man, like, but what about like, the free money concepts where it's drop shipping, or maybe I pay an engineer to do this project that I've always wanted to try, or maybe I just hand it and invest early in a concept that somehow I have access to. I am constantly thinking about where does the next marginal dollar go, and right now, the answer is I'd put it in a not tax protected, so just a normal investment account through Vanguard.
Okay.
So I could pull it out in 5 months when I want to put a down payment on the house.
Okay.
And it's not cool. But so to your point, when you said like 25,000 could disappear, Warren Buffett, I think, has he's
all
done,
right.
Right.
He's
but like
right.
Two of his things is like rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. So that's one concept. His other thing, Charlie Munger and him, like, it's just the name of the game is never make a bet that can end the game.
Yes, yeah, exactly, and that's
that's what you pointed to, which is like, if I have money and I have a business that's cash flowing and I have prospects in that business and I'm like the forecast looks good, I can choose to allocate money where I'd like, and it can be risky, but as long as the downside on that risk isn't bankruptcy and complete failure, that's fine. Then you look at people like Kanye West, who's an anomaly, who, like, you can go from bankrupt, and people have done it so many times that they've gone from
Ted Turner's been bankrupt, a couple
bankruptcy
times,
to billions, and it's not all smoke and mirrors. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
Look at the YouTube video right now. You'll see the face we're giving each other.
Sometimes it is.
Every 4 years.
Yeah, but I think that's one of my points. And so what I've been doing is I've been trying to spend a lot of time listening to, reading, and that's my like proxy for surrounding myself with people who are thinking on scales that are just bigger.
Yeah.
And so New York was a gift in that, like, you saw big, but I didn't get time around big. In Asheville, I've been blessed with 1.5 years of spending time around like hardworking entrepreneurs who also make time to mountain bike, make time to go camping, make time to fit, whatever their things are. Go to whatever they're in love with. They do that. They go overlanding. They ride dirt bikes, and I'm just like, that is this like balance thing that I find,
because when you live in the city, it's about wealth accumulation.
Accumulation, and it's a zero-sum game. Most people lose, some people win, and they're like, it can eat your soul. Like, people love it, or it grinds you down to nothing. And New York doesn't care. Like, that's one of my things I would always say is like, New York doesn't care if we leave. New York doesn't care if we come back. But New York will always be there.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, like kryptonite can be a power source for some people. And then kryptonite also kills Superman. And I felt like when I was young, the kryptonite of New York gave me power. And then in my mid to late 20s, I recognized that it didn't give me life. It was killing me. And I saw in Sarah that though when she first got there, she didn't like New York much, she got into this vibe and like a whole rhythm, and she liked it 2 years in. But, you know, I give her a year out of New York. And
once you get out of it.
She's like, oh, yeah, you know, like I think I want a garden. And I'm like, I knew that you would want a garden. I was saying that when we moved, like in the early episodes of the podcast.
You know how rich you have to be to garden in New York City?
I want to get Sarah a garden. And she's like, I don't know why he always says that he wants to get me a garden. I've never said I wanted a garden.
That's fantastic.
So anyway,
I will say to piggyback on top of that question, one of the rules for me, or one of my guiding principles, is I want to have access to my money pretty quickly should the opportunity arise that I need to be able to put a lot of marbles on or a lot of chips on one number.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at your 401k, you're looking at stock markets, you're looking at a little more quote unquote traditional routes, that can be a little harder. Yeah. And so I do, when thinking back toward that question of where you put your money and how I like to have access to it. Yeah. And of course, you know, not all my money is in a place where I can get it without penalty for sure. Yeah. But I have to know what that means.
And penalties like quickly is an interesting term for me.
People
right
say
now.
Penalty, and it's not like, I hate that. It's not like a negative.
You can pull out the premium. Like I've agreed to this. Like you can pull out the principal. Yeah. With almost no penalty. You can use it on certain investments with effectively no penalty, or up to a certain amount. So like I think that's a great point. I have a friend from Madison, New Jersey's other guy named Tony. Antonio on his landscaping business. Guy has been an entrepreneur printing money since he was like 16.
Yeah.
I respect his hustle. Unlike, you know, Antonio, once I went to a bar and he ordered a beer. A bunch of us were going to spend some time there, and he closed out his tab, paid in cash, closed out his tab, and I was like, "Are you leaving?" And he goes, "No, I just want to be able to leave whenever I want to leave." And I think about that with money as well. It's like, I would like to be able, like, when it's time for me to move, I would like to be able to move. Yeah. That said, like, I don't think downturns in the economy or in the stock market are when it's time to move, right? Like, that's the only way you guarantee.
Unless you're already wealthy and you can buy more stuff.
Heard. I think if the stock market were to drop tomorrow by 30%, I would take all of the money that we had available, liquid, and put it in the stock market. I think it's going up.
Yeah.
Over time, it'll correct and it'll go up.
Yep.
And so I don't think you sell when it's going down.
Gotcha.
I think you take your money out when you have an idea or a concept or a friend who's got a business and you want to participate in that.
Yeah.
And that's when you can, you know, solidify a loss or a gain when you move out of the market.
I'm going to step on a high horse real quick. The people I know who have a lot of money in the market and make a lot of money in the market was just a place for them to put the money they were already making on all their other stuff.
Right. It's for sure.
They were making so much money through their business or personal whatever investment.
I'm not gonna day trade someone and beat them in the market.
No.
I'm not, like, you're not going to be that early on Apple. You're not going to be like, and power to you if somehow or another you get on a cap table something before it IPOs, but like, that's not how you make money.
That's winning the lottery. You might as well buy tickets every week.
That's not how you're going to make money. The concept that I'm holding on to is that it's time in the market is more important than timing the market.
Yeah. I'm okay with it being a part of your investment, part of the way you are growing wealth.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be the primary, because you can't control it. You can't really
how
access
much
it.
Time, I'll say runway, like, so business will have like a burn, right?
Yeah.
So your monthly burn, your annual burn as a family, how much do you like to have in liquid, I'll call it cash savings, whatever?
I try to keep 3 months on everything. We at the beginning of the pandemic, I was sitting on like 4 months, and I just sat all the employees down, and I was like, "Listen, we're good for if no one sends us a dime, we're good for 4 months. If we get paid half the money we're owed, we're going to be good for 8 months. If everybody pays us the money they owe us, we're going to be good for a year." And those are like the forecasts that I like to have. Again, that's a good economy. 2010, I'd be happy to say, "Oh, I'm good for a month." But that was just me, as a single sole proprietor, basically, at that point.
Wow. Dang, money. We're going to end this episode with a license infraction. Pink Floyd's going to play us out. There goes our ability to monetize the podcast. Use a Pink Floyd song.
You two go kick it off. Don't worry. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. It was money. Protect your neck, like Wu-Tang says.
Love it. Okay, let's see.
Play the music.
Pink.
No.
Oh. Pink. That's it.
There you go.
Oh.
The monies.